Join Gator great Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. It's a live edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's Monday. We'll have JC here in just a second. And then we'll have Scott Carter from FloridaGators.com will join us. Second portion of today's program. If you missed it last night, I believe the Raiders defeat the Jets in the Sunday night game. The Monday night football game of the Broncos and the Buffalo Bills should be a good one. We can discuss NFL. We can discuss college football. We can discuss the Gators. A lot of people getting fired. More firings are coming. And if you missed it, Shaq's daughter verbally commits to Kelly Ray Finley to play for the Lady Gators. So, JC, welcome. You're on the Titan Number hotline, courtesy of Duffield Home Improvements.
Yep.
What do you think? What hat do you? The Steelers. The Steelers win again, and were outgained. They have not outgained their opponent one time this year. It's unbelievable.
Well, they definitely win ugly. They do it with defense and fundamental football on the offensive side that doesn't turn it over. So listen, they got a couple players on that team. That division is rugged. What we saw yesterday in Baltimore with Cleveland beating the Ravens, I just think it solidifies the fact that we could see easily 3 teams out of that division in the playoffs in the postseason. So Pittsburgh's 6-3, man. I love Pittsburgh. I'm a Pittsburgh fan. I like it. I like Pittsburgh, the city. I mean, the city is a great place. I'd rather go to Pittsburgh than Baltimore, Cleveland, or, well, Cincinnati is a cool town too. So
Baltimore's kind of cool.
After 7 p.m., you want to be indoors. Of course, I guess that's
if you're there on the little.
Yeah, it's correct. You're right. Inner Harbor is nice.
Yeah,
no doubt. You're right. Inner Harbor is nice by the convention center. I'll give you that. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. All right. So if you missed it Saturday night, Gators losing a shootout, 52-35, give up the most yards the Gators have ever given up in the history of the game. I think it was the most yards on offense that a team in the Southeastern Conference has ever had. But I guess I could say I'm fortunate that, JC, I might be part of an Aflac trivia question.
That's right.
And, in 40 years from now, because I got to call the game where Jaden Daniels did something that has never happened in the game of football. He had over 300 passing, over 200 rushing, and there was 374 and like 230 something. Yep. He's a phenomenal player. If he does not win the Heisman Trophy, I think it's a joke. I know Bo Nix is the favorite now and Michael Penix, but if you watch Jaden Daniels play, he's the best player in football. I think he's better than Lamar Jackson was. I really do.
Okay, well then tell me why he wouldn't win it.
Because, I think now most people want to, he's not in the hunt. Like Penix and Bo Nix are still vying to get in the 14 playoff. But Lamar won it with 3 or 4 losses. Tebow won it, I think, with 3 or 4 losses. There's multiple people that have won the award with that amount of losses. So he's the best player in America. Nobody's going to change my mind on that.
Okay.
Nobody.
Well, Robert Griffin III won it.
He was the other.
They went 10-3. Caleb Williams 11-3. Southern Cal. So I mean, there's 2 teams with 3 losses. Yeah. When Lamar won it in 2016, I think Louisville was 9-4. So listen, if the voters watch what's on the field, then he's going to New York for sure, and he will be challenged with Bo Nix. I think right there with him. I think Bo Nix and Michael and Daniels are your 2 favorites for that trophy, and we'll see what Nix does with Washington in that second game. But I'm not ready to say Washington has any guarantees. They got an Oregon State team coming up in Corvallis. That is going to be a war for them to win, because defensively Washington is very average.
Greg says it on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mello. Daniels wins the Heisman. He should thank the Gators during his speech. He should thank everybody, Greg. That must have been the only game. I mean, he ran all over Alabama until he got knocked out. I don't think they were going to win that game. but Alabama was having trouble containing him as well. If you missed it, A&M has fired Jimbo Fisher. He will be getting $76 million regardless. If he, normally when you get fired and you go coach somewhere else, JC,
yeah,
they don't have to pay that portion of your new salary.
That's
he
right.
gets it no matter what.
I just gotta tell you, it's incredible what Ross Bjork is getting away with. He was the one that gave Jimbo Fisher this extension in 2017, and he was the one that did it because Jimbo was 26-10 in his first 4 years, and I think he won something like, they finished 4th in the country in 2020, right? So Kellen Mond was your quarterback, and he felt like because Brian Kelly was about to sign for $95 million at LSU, he felt like he had to lock up Jimbo, which was asinine, but that's what he said. So the athletic department, think about this. He's going to get $19.2 million within 60 days. He's going to get $7.2 million annually through 2031, which seems like forever from now. And the two funding sources for this will be their athletic department. So A&M tickets will be about $200 a piece to go to the game. And the 12th Man Foundation, which is a charitable organization, a 501c3, they too will fund this ridiculous $76 million. And his, he's kept his job. He's the one who's responsible for this. He admitted that, but he says they were in a lull. They were in neutral, so to speak. And he wants to have this job filled by December 4th, because what happens on December 4th, QB? You know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
That's when the transfer portal is open for business, and he needs to have his guy in there. So the next question is obviously who does A&M hire? And the answer I have, I'll throw one name out there. I think it's a very legitimate name, and I'd say it's the guy at Washington, Kalen DeBoer. Only problem is Kalen DeBoer does not have Michael Penix coming with him this time. So just keep that in mind. And Michael Penix was his quarterback at Indiana when he went to Washington, and he won't be coming to College Station. So just keep that in mind, Aggie fans, but get ready to pay about $200 a ticket.
Yeah, for sure. On YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Iceman says LSU defense is horrible. Stop hyping up this trash offense we have. I don't know what he's talking about. Offense played well. Offense played decent enough to win games the last few years, everybody. I mean, last few games.
35 against LSU, and how many against Arkansas? 36.
36.
Come on. If you don't know clearly what the problem is with that team Saturday, then you're just not watching the games. They don't tackle. It's an Ole defense, like a matador as a bull goes by. Do I want to see this guy in white coming up? Should I tackle him? Oh, hell no. Let him go by. And Ole, there he goes. That's my analogy. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. Brandon says, did y'all see where the boosters at A&M presented a check at halftime for $164 million? And then they fired their coach the next day. They got so much money there. It's ridiculous. Here's, I've had people texting me. And we're going
decisions. QB, it doesn't mean they're smart. It doesn't mean they make good decisions. Ross Bjork has screwed them, but he's still there. But whatever.
Yeah. So, everybody's, we lost a couple of recruits, a kid to Auburn and a kid to Texas. Okay. People get very upset with me when I say this. And I haven't mentioned it to you at all, JC. So I want to get your honest to God thoughts on this.
Okay.
Recruiting is about winning and all that stuff. Now, Auburn's not winning, but today's world, recruiting is about cash. Okay. Would you agree or disagree with these schools that I'm going to name in the Southeastern Conference that have way more money than the Mighty Gators? Alabama, Georgia, LSU, A&M, and Auburn.
Well, I certainly wouldn't argue with A&M, but I'm not so sure about the other three you mentioned. I mean, way more money.
I mentioned five.
But QB, I think when you look at the revenues that these programs bring in, Florida.
No. I'm not talking about the athletic programs. I'm talking about the dudes that have checkbooks, the guys like JC that are going to write a check for $1.6 million. Do what you want to do with it. Here's one for $10 million. Do what you want to do with it. I'm telling you, we don't have that when you go between Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Auburn, and A&M. And then you're going to bring Texas and Oklahoma into the mix.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you.
Especially Texas, dear God. And the thing is, QB, that is a competitive advantage. There's no doubt. But, the University of Florida's alumni base, as you know, is bigger than all those schools.
But again, do you think the dude that graduated with a degree in chemistry from the University of Florida gives a damn about the football program or athletic pro? I know we have a huge alumni base, but not everybody that graduates from those schools give money to buy football players.
Yeah. Well,
that's where I'm going with this. Jimmy from Yellowwood, if Jimmy from Yellowwood wants a damn football player, he's going to write a check and say, go get him.
It still doesn't mean A&M's winning. I mean,
I didn't say that. I'm just saying
you're making the
people
point
get upset
money,
about these people losing the recruits. This is all about recruiting.
Okay.
Because recruiting is not what it used to be. Recruiting now is, how much are you paying me to come play for you? And then you call this coach and you say, how much y'all going to pay me to come play there?
I get all of that. All of that's true. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm also saying it's not the only reason you win. And A&M,
I agree. But if you win and you have deep pockets, you're going to win even more. So people get so upset when these 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids decide to flip to another school. What can you do about it? There's not a damn thing you can do about it. You're wasting your time and your energy tweeting and calling and bitching about it. There's nothing you can do about it. That's where I'm going with this. Okay. All right, let's get to some of these YouTubers. Florida Boy says, our offense is the only reason we are in games and competitive. Graham Mertz will be among the best QBs in the country next year, and recent history tells us QBs make a huge jump. Look, he's played outstanding. Can you imagine if Graham Mertz, we didn't even get him in the portal where we'd be right now?
Yeah, no, and guess what? Nobody else wanted him, and he had a lot to prove, but he has done that. He has been the most consistent player on this team. I know he's supposed to come back next year. I get that. But again, he has the freedom to do whatever the hell he wants to. So, look, Sam Hartman, he left Wake Forest. How much better is Florida than Wake Forest? So I can just tell you that we don't know, dude. It depends on, like you said, who calls and who's got the checkbook. It seems like in that case, it could be that way.
Billy says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, is the strength and conditioning sufficient enough? The linebacker got put on his butt by a running back and the line doesn't get a lot of penetration. Like I told you, strength and conditioning, weight room strength is great. It's not football strength.
They don't tackle. They can look like they can bench press 700 pounds. I don't care. They can't put pressure on a quarterback, dude. Right? Isn't that what you're talking about?
Well, no, they ran a jet sweep for a touchdown at the end of the game, and their running back was the lead blocker, and he peeled back and he clobbered Derek Wingo. Derek Wingo's small. I mean, that's one thing. The running back's bigger than he is. We have very small linebackers. I don't care if they were 5 stars or whatever. We do not have the size, in my opinion, right now, to compete with those guys. 1966 HBC is available at Spurs, Gridiron Grill, Gator Games in the Swamp, and select retail outlets. Crisp American Lager, 1966 HBC beer. JC, let me read a couple things here that I screenshot over the weekend.
Okay.
All right. It's talking about, says it's hard to win when you can't stop the opposition. Napier's teams have given up 30 or more points 10 times in 23 football games that he's coached.
Yeah.
They've given up 38 or more 8 times in those games, and 42 points or more 5 of the 23 games. That's just not acceptable. All right. Then here's another one. Think about the game Saturday. It was close for a while, but think about it. LSU scored 52 points.
Yeah.
Remember, they got stopped on the 1-yard line. That took away points. Yes. They also turned it over on downs in our territory, and they lost the possession from a muffed kickoff. So they could have easily scored over 60 if those things don't happen, but they did.
Yeah, I mean, QB, it's true. The score was 28 to it was 38-28 after the third quarter. It was 30-35 at the beginning of the fourth. But if you can't stop the other team, it doesn't really. It's a 4-quarter game, and the problem is Florida's identity on defense is non-existent in terms of being able to stop when they have to. And Missouri's going to tell me why Missouri's not going to score over 35 points on Saturday night. I mean, they will.
I can't tell you. Anna says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plum, offense is not great against great teams. South Carolina, Arkansas, LSU are terrible defenses. Against good defenses, we are below average on offense. Okay, we've played Utah. I throw the Utah game out because we did not call the game the way we're calling it now. Georgia. Hey, okay. Did y'all watch Ole Miss's offense? They didn't do anything. Okay.
After
Nobody's doing anything is a good defense. Georgia's
well,
defense.
I mean, they
I
have
don't know what other defenses. I guess
Ole Miss
Tennessee's supposed to have a good defense.
listen,
Move the ball on them.
it's
Who
true.
else did we play that has a great defense?
Okay, so who else has a great defense? I mean, I don't think Kentucky does. And
no, but I don't think we called the game very good then. I think you got to take the Kentucky and before. I think we called the game differently. But look, like I told you,
Missouri's got a good defense. They're going to be tough.
Yeah, they're very good. I think we'll move the football on them, though.
Yeah.
Andy says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon, well, 2 O-line coaches, how are we not able to mold these 6'8", 375 offensive linemen? Just because you're big, look at Osiris Torrance. He is not a very big guy. He's like 6'3", 300-something pounds. Just because you're big, that's the thing that kind of skews it. Just because you're big and stuff doesn't mean you're going to be a good player. It's just like there's tons of guys that run a 4.4 but can't play wide receiver.
Well, I mean, Damian George is one of the biggest guys on the line. I see more guys run around him than I've seen in the last 3.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. He couldn't play at Alabama. We picked him up hoping he would work, but it didn't work. So, all right.
Yeah,
so
sometimes the transfer portal doesn't give you what you want. I mean, it gives you somebody, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work.
All right.
out.
So some coaches that have been fired. Jimbo's already been fired at A&M. Boise State's fired their coach. I think they're going to hire Brian Hartson back. UCLA's getting ready to fire Chip Kelly.
They should.
They are.
They should.
And then
Arkansas, Scott Strickland, by the way, that was his first choice before Mullen.
I don't know if it's official or not, but Arkansas is going to part ways with Sam Pittman. I don't know if that's officially come out, but it's going to happen.
Poor Sam. Yeah, Sam was the belle of the ball last year, and yeah, it's just really gone upside down for him. And that's just the environment we're in, which is why what you see these teams that consistently do it every year. It's so amazing. It's just, to me, it's just incredible. But I'll tell you what I did see too, QB, that did not impress me. Okay, I'm just going to give you an opinion. I watched the mighty Michigan Wolverines play football. Not only did they look slow to me, but they looked uninventive. They looked boring. They looked uninventive. Yeah, they're not creative. They looked like they.
Is that a word though?
I just made it a word.
Okay.
And they basically looked just as drab as their state. And the reality is, again, they're going to beat somebody one day, and maybe it's Ohio State, maybe it's not. But that one game a year is all they're going to have to show on their resume at home, by the way. And then we're going to have to be fed the idea and the narrative that they're ready to beat up on Alabama, Georgia, or Oregon. And I'm telling you right now, it's the same story that we've seen with Michigan every single year we see them in the playoff. It's not going to be any different. J.J. McCarthy does not confuse me with Andrew Luck. Their defense is not the 86 Giants. They played Penn State, who is the most pathetic, most non-creative, most drab and god-awful offense with a quarterback who wouldn't be starting for half the teams in this conference. And now we're supposed to believe they're the best team in the country. QB, they are not.
J.J. McCarthy would be playing for a lot of schools in the SEC, Jason.
Really? Well, it's funny because against that rugged Penn State defense, J.J. McCarthy didn't show me a damn thing. Now, maybe they didn't have to.
I think they called like 8 pass plays the whole game.
I know. He didn't have to throw the ball. And you know why? That's an indictment on Penn State, not on Michigan. So
Michigan just said, we're just going to run it right down your throat. J.J. McCarthy's a very good player. I like him a lot. I don't think he's a Heisman Trophy contender, but
okay, is he going to throw it all over Georgia's defense? Is he going to throw it all over Alabama's defense? Is he going to throw it all over Oregon?
Well, no, because that's not the identity. They don't do that at Michigan.
Let's see you run on Alabama, Georgia, and Oregon. I'll just go for it, Michigan. But they're not going to be able to do that on Ohio State either. I'm just here to tell you, folks. Michigan is what I call fool's gold. They're fool's gold. Fool's gold.
Jim says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, Penn State fired their OC. Maybe the OC isn't a trout wine fit. Look, James Franklin's been there 10 years. He's fired 5 offensive coordinators.
They can't figure it out there. They have no idea. Drew Aller, my God, that poor kid. If you ask him to throw a 30-yard post or a curl route or even a hitch, I'm not sure he can do it against a decent defense with breathing people on it. So I think what we're going to see is Florida State's have a tough finish with Florida and Louisville. I think.
So do you still think you think they're really good, JC?
I think they're going to I think they're going to be undefeated and make the playoffs. Yeah. I did not say that they were.
I don't think Florida State's going to make the playoffs even if they go undefeated. I don't. I've seen, I think they're going to continue dropping. Yep. That Miami team is god awful, and they played with quarterback play that you could play better. Yeah. And they had a chance to win the game.
Yeah.
They have played that way the entire year, and people are overlooking it for some reason. I don't think they're one of the better top 7 or 8 teams in America. Personally.
Okay, well, I mean, they're going to be tested. They will be tested somewhat, I think, against this team here. Believe it or not, I do think.
Yeah, and Louisville,
and the Louisville team. I don't. They'll be favored in both games for sure. Yeah. I am absolutely convinced Oregon is better than Washington. I think between Ohio State and Michigan, you can flip a coin. I probably would lean Ohio State, but I'm not sure. And then as far as Texas goes, if they're healthy, they'll be able to maneuver and play with anybody. But look at what Texas has done. They got a gift from that idiot at Kansas State who can't figure out how to kick extra points. And they got a gift last week struggling with TCU. I'm not sure what Texas has got to offer right now. And that doesn't mean that they don't deserve this or they don't deserve that. But remember, at this time of year, it is the mandate of the College Football Playoff Committee to pick the 4 best teams, not the 4 most deserving. And we saw what the most deserving got us last year with blowout in the final. So even though TCU beat Michigan, they had no business being on the field with Georgia. And that's not what the playoffs should be about. It's not about that. It's about getting the 4 best teams right now at the end of December, on December the 3rd, into the playoff. That's to me the mandate, and we'll see if they follow through with it.
All right, let me give some of these texts on the Titan Tomorrow text line from Ryan. He says, we moseyed up to Truist Park this weekend to see Morgan Wallen put on a kick-ass concert. It was a beautiful theme because there weren't any false starts, holds, substitution violations, or time management issues. But they did have to stop the show one time because Jaden Daniels was running wild on the stage. He's ridiculously good, but some of Florida's attempts to tackle him were just embarrassing. Number 7 from Missouri will shred the mighty Gators. That running back they have, look him up, folks. He's a walk-on. He's a walk-on from like a Division IV school that it's unbelievable.
Corey Schrader. He's Christian McCaffrey, dude. That's who he is.
And JC, he's a walk-on. Look where he came from.
I know where he is. You didn't see him play, did you?
I watched him play. I've seen him play all year long. He's a good player. But my point to the story is he's a walk-on. He ain't a 5-star. He's a 0-star walk-on from like a NAIA school.
Okay, it's still good football play. I can't help it that these coaches miss some. They do. They miss a few. But look at what Missouri's presenting right now. Missouri, dude, you walked into that stadium 2 years ago and laughed. You thought,
and I'm going to laugh again when I'm there this time because it's terrible.
And they're going to
This is from Daryl. Good morning, guys. Jaden Daniels deserves the Heisman. I wish Trey Wilson would have got more touches in the second half, but I probably wouldn't have mattered anyways because we couldn't stop LSU. No. Very true. Very true. JC, how'd we do on our picks? Peachland Dental picks.
You were 6-6-1, respectable, but I was 4-8. Worse.
Okay, that's pretty bad.
That's bad. So that puts you at 47-58-3. It puts me at 56-49-3. My garage picks, I won a garage. I lost the Oklahoma State garage, but I won the SMU, and I had the Northwestern Wisconsin under 42.5. Again, it brings me to the Big Ten. The worst offense I've seen presented by a conference in college football, maybe ever on the Power 5 level. The offenses are so bad there that you cannot tell me that Michigan is one of the best teams in the country. They are not tested. And if they played on Saturday night in Athens, or if they played last weekend on Saturday night in Tuscaloosa, Michigan's getting their tails kicked in. And that's just what I believe, and I will believe it until I see otherwise. But that ain't going to happen either because they're not going to beat anybody when they get to the playoff, if they beat Ohio. I'm not sure they can beat Ohio. Your beloved Wolverines.
Here's a Noel text on the Titan Tomorrow text line says FSU's the only team that held Jaden Daniels in check. Greedy wins games. Now that's the first game of the year, and they had some questionable stuff that happened in that first half. He would run all over that FSU defense right now. I can tell you that. Greg from Fort Myers says Mike Elko will be the head coach at A&M. He has Aggie ties.
Yes, he does.
He does have. I mean, Yes, but I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Well, he was their defensive coordinator, and if money talks and they call him, he'll answer. I mean, sure,
right? But they may want to go hire somebody else. Well, we don't know.
But I think that's a good text or email, or whatever. I think there's some possibility there, and I think this guy at Kansas, who has overseen the greatest reclamation project in the history of college football, is also a hot name. And he might bring Jalen Daniels with him. Jalen Daniels hasn't played at Kansas this year because Jalen Daniels wants to keep another year of eligibility. I don't think it's his back. I just don't think he saw any point to it with Kansas for the rest of this year after he did hurt his back. I think he can totally go to Lincoln Riley over there at Southern Cal next year if he wants to, or follow Lance Leipold, who I think will be another hot name at Michigan State and maybe even at Texas A&M. That guy's a winner.
Yeah. Brett from Jacksonville on the Taking More text line says, Shane, there was one play that stood out to me. The running back came out of the backfield. No one was near him, caught the ball. We have the worst defense I've ever seen. Yeah, they ran like a 4 verts, and then the back he'd act like he's blocking it a little on the back out of the backfield, and that's just linebacker play. Our linebacker play is not great.
Hasn't been in a long time, QB.
Yeah. Chris says, I don't think that's true anymore. I'm not sure we're still. NIL transfer portal has changed the game. Napier has whiffed on O-line recruiting and his assistant coaches. He is not as meticulous as he says. Lee says, during 3 straight losses, UF offense had 26 possessions, the 8, the 10, and the 8, and without a TD. Credit Billy for averaging 30 points in those games, but he needs 40 a game to have a fighting Gator chance. That's true. But Lee, let me play devil's advocate here. Not every football team, even the best offenses in America, score touchdowns every time they touch it. That's what blows my mind. These people are like, well, we didn't do this. We did that. Look, you don't score every time you touch it. There's not been one team in the history of the game that has scored every possession that I'm aware of. JC, can you think of anybody?
I cannot.
Yeah. You are going to punt the ball or you are going to kick field goals, people. If you think you're not supposed to, you need to go play video games and watch those or something. Because
the guy at Kansas State doesn't think they're supposed to. So, he's the reason they lose.
What did he do? I didn't see it.
Well, this was 2 weeks ago or last week against Texas. I mean, he just caused them to lose. He wouldn't kick the extra point to force a game into overtime when he was driving all over the Longhorns, and he went for 2, and he said he would do it again, and he would be wrong again. So, I mean, some of these coaches are just stubborn. Analytics, it's like a disease. It's taken over some of the brain power of some of these coaches when they're trying to add or when they're trying to manage the clock. It's ridiculous because analytics doesn't take into consideration the team they're playing at that moment, the players that are on the field at that moment. It doesn't take into consideration the tenure of the game at that moment. It's just numbers. It's just statistics. It's not good. And these coaches are getting sucked into it, and it's costing them dearly.
Well, James Franklin did some of the dumbest crap I've ever seen Saturday.
I mean, James Franklin's stealing $10 million a year from Penn State and has been for a long time.
But what I'm saying is go back to the old 2-point play chart. I don't know what they think by if you miss this, you go down 2 possessions. But if we kick it, it's still a 1-possession game. That does not take anybody that understands football.
Like I said, math is hard, bro. 8, 9, and 7. Those are the numbers. Figure it out, guys.
Kevin from Punta Gorda says on the Titan More text line, would love to see an alternate cast of Sean and the QB like Peyton and Eli. It would be awesome to see. Y'all don't want to see me in the box. That would be great pay-per-view. I lost it. The only time I lost it this game, JC, is I think it was right before half, and people were raising hell on Twitter because we have a couple of people in our production staff that show us what's going on Twitter. And I was like, okay, people, I understand, but you do not understand football. Okay. We get the ball back with about 46 seconds left. And for whatever reason, again, this goes back to the people that are on the sidelines with headsets on. We get a delay of game at the change of a possession.
Yeah.
So now it's 1st and 15 from like your own 8-yard line. And I think we had maybe 1 or 2 timeouts or no time. They had no timeouts. Right. I said, run the ball. Let's get out of here because you don't want anything bad to happen right there. Because it was only a 3-point game. People were like, we got to go score. people, you don't understand football if that's the case. You had horrible field position. You have trouble protecting. And have you noticed the team on the other sideline that they score in about 3 plays? You cannot give them the ball on the 15 or 20-yard line. So
No.
I was upset at us getting a delay of game. That was ridiculous.
Well,
So,
yeah. I mean, QB, I have seen you in the box. I know exactly what I'm looking at with you in the box. I've seen you in that box. And that's what coaches are. I mean, that's exactly you're a coach in the box is what you are, but not a coach on the field.
Yeah. Rod says on YouTube, brought to you by Quad Plumbing. Shane, do you think Dan Campbell leaves the Lions to go back to his alma mater, A&M? Hell no.
No way. He owns that city right now.
And he does. I mean, I don't know what he's making with the Lions. Of course, he'd make way more, but then he's got to recruit. He's got to recruit. He's got to recruit. He's got to NIL.
No.
Dude, I would be shocked if you ever see an NFL coach who is employed and go back to college football. There is no way. They don't care about the money. They don't want to have to deal with all the headaches. There are so many headaches in college football now. It's not even fun.
Well, I'll say this: for all the troubles that you see in college football, it's right there behind the NFL in viewership. So college football is healthy. And next year with the 12-team playoff, I think it's going to be even more exciting, QB. We're not going to have these conversations about who's deserving and who's better on the field. And that's what I think we're about to see. Because if Texas runs the table, you know the scenarios. We're not going to go through all those.
Okay, Rail says we got the ball with 2 minutes left. I don't care if we got the ball with 5 minutes left. If the other team has no timeouts and you start a series at 1st and 15 from about the 8, and you can run the clock out. And if you haven't, obviously you ain't watched our team block. It was the correct decision. And if you listen to the broadcast, I'm telling them, run the football, run the football, run the football.
Maybe the fans are simply saying, listen, we're going to have to outscore these guys because we can't stop them.
But again, what are the odds? What are the odds from your own 8-yard line when it's 1st and 15?
Yeah.
And you're going to drop your quarterback back, sack, fumble. It's 24-14 coming out of the locker room.
Yeah.
People don't understand situational football.
True,
maybe this dude is one of our coaches on the sideline, don't understand situational football.
Well, maybe, yeah. All I'm pointing out for their benefit, I don't really care because I think we all knew what was going to happen in this game anyway. But what they're trying to say is whenever you have the ball in a game that's a shootout and you have to score, you try. That's all.
But you don't in that situation. That's my point. He says, why do we practice 2-minute drill? It's again, just because it's 2 minutes left in the game doesn't mean you try to score because it's all about the situation. Now, if we would have gained yards on 1st and 10, that's a different story. But before the ball was even snapped, it was 1st and 15. Yeah. It's situational, smart football. All right. We got to get to Scott Carter, JC.
Okay. All right.
You got any other? So right now, you think Mike Elko will be the coach at A&M?
No. I said Kalen DeBoer is my name, but I don't think he's going to bring. But he can't bring Michael Penix with him. So just.
Do you think? What about Dan Lanning?
I think Phil Knight can take care of whatever A&M's got.
Well, if I'm Dan Lanning, I don't want to go to the SEC.
Right.
It's going to be way easier for me. Well, he's going to be in the Big Ten next year.
Oh, it's going to be
still way easier.
It's going to be much easier. Big Ten, my God, I just got done telling you what a joke that conference is. Look at the Western Division. They can't get first downs. Iowa is going to play either Ohio State, Michigan in their sorry-ass conference championship game. Give me a break. They suck. They got 2 teams, and neither of them are good on offense. Not one of them is going to beat Georgia, Alabama, Oregon. I can't see it. I can't see it. Now, maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I'm telling you, I've been pretty right. I was right about Harbaugh getting suspended. I was right about Michigan sucking on offense, and I'm right about the fact that they're not going to win anything this year. They're not. They're no different than they have been in the past. They haven't won anything. They've won 1 championship in that lousy-ass conference. 1 championship. 1 in 20, how many years? 20?
Yeah.
3?
All right, we got to go to Scott Carter. That's JC joins us on the Techmore Hotline. Going to take a quick timeout. Come back. We'll talk a little Gator football with Scott Carter from FloridaGators.com. You're watching and listening to PodUp Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Campus USA, put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, watch. Duffield Home Improvements for your window, siding, and roofing needs. Radware, your local provider of promotional products, uniforms, and apparel. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Radware, F45, Quality Plumbing. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
The Kiara Grace Foundation proudly presents An Evening with Tim Tebow, Thursday, November 30th at the Touchdown Terrace at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. Experience a once-in-a-lifetime VIP meet and greet with Tim. Hear his heartfelt stories and his unyielding dedication to the most vulnerable. With your support, we can extend the reach of the Kiara Grace Foundation to save precious lives in Latin America. Get your ticket before they sell out. Don't miss your chance to meet Tim Tebow, be inspired, and make a tangible difference.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Silverback Concrete's a family-led team of heavy concrete specialists that build commercial structures with unrivaled quality. Silverback Concrete, you stand on it, we stand by it. We're going to head to the Titan MR hotline, courtesy of Duffield Home Improvements, and we're joined by the one and the only senior writer, FloridaGators.com, Scott Carter. Good morning, Scott. How you doing, bud?
Hey, good morning, Shane. Doing a lot better than last week, and quite frankly, doing better than the Gators this morning, probably. So,
yeah, Scott, it's I tell everybody at least I'll be part of an Aflac trivia question, and 50 years from now, Jaden Daniels does something that nobody in the history of the game has ever done, and I mean, he's just a phenomenal player. Would he be your Heisman winner?
Yeah, at this point, I think he would be. I've always been one of those guys. I always like the Heisman to go who I think is the best player in college football, the player that I would pay, to go see regardless of his team's record and everything. And I think Jaden Daniels fits the bill. You're seeing that conversation starting to play out after what happened Saturday. A lot of people, well, he's on a 7-3 LSU team. Well, hey, man, it's not his fault that their defense is not very good. He's a dynamic player. He was good against the Gators last year in the Swamp. He was unbelievable on Saturday night against them in Tiger Stadium. And he was obviously the difference in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many texts, YouTubers, Facebooks talking about the poor Florida defense. At least people now are seeing that. I've been telling them that offense is not the problem. I mean, yes, we want to score more points, but some drives are going to stall. But defensively, it's just been a mess.
Yeah.
How can they improve on this? Do we have to wait till new bodies come in, or what do you think, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wrote about that this morning. Just, Billy Napier after the game, then I was watching the video, and, he went down a long list of some of the things that's been an issue with the defense. And a lot of them are terms that you and I hear all the time, Shane. They're coaching terms like eye discipline and technique and leverage. But let's face it, him and Austin Armstrong aren't going to say this, but we can say it. I mean, you're not going to get much better until they get better players. I mean, there's no secret here that this Florida defense is not close to anything resembling one of the great Florida defenses. And I've been saying this, and we've been saying this for 3 years now. You look at what happened on Saturday night, they gave up 701 yards. And then you look last year, or 3 years ago against Oklahoma, they gave up 684 in the Cotton Bowl. They gave up 613 against Ole Miss in the COVID season. the record for 24 years for a Florida defense in terms of the opponent's yardage stood at that Fiesta Bowl 629 that we all remember. That stood for 24 years. It's been broken twice and threatened once in the last 3 seasons. So this isn't just a one night at LSU problem, Jaden Daniels problem. The Gators need to get better there defensively. And I think we saw some players on the field Saturday night who can help. Kelby Collins, I think, is part of the solution. I still like, Jordan Castell back there. But, yes, they have to get more guys. And we can't forget the fact, Shane, that, they're without who I thought was their most steady defensive player at this season, Shamar James. They lost him. So, I mean, they're not at full strength, and they're just not very SEC, top-tier SEC talented at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. It's been going on for a long time, and
Yes.
that's what is just somewhat shocking to me because, before Coach Spurrier came in, obviously we know how he changed how Florida played on offense. You could hang your hat on. Florida always had dudes on defense, and just like the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years, it just hasn't been that way. And we've got to get back to it. Now, granted, too, now defense has changed. The game has changed. All the new rules favor the offense. So it's not like, Georgia's got a good defense, but people still move the football on them. You're still going to give up yards and points, but not what we saw the last 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, and there's a lot fewer players in football. Like, let's take a guy like Brandon Spikes. I mean, a big physical linebacker. There's not many of those guys like him in NFL or college anymore because the game has sped up, and it's more like you said, toward the offense. So we are in a different phase here in terms of just the game itself. But eventually, you don't have to be a football expert to look out on the field and say, okay, the Gators need a couple more studs, just to put it simply.
Yeah. Rodney says on Facebook, if it makes anyone feel better, the special teams is worse than the defense. I don't know about that. I don't think we had any special team blunders Saturday. Did we, that I can think of?
No, it was pretty clean on special teams. I mean, I know that's been kind of the punching bag this season, and rightfully so at times. But I think, it was pretty clean on Saturday at LSU. And it's just whenever you're in a rut like the Gators are right now, Shane, I mean, everything's going to get picked apart. We all know that. They've lost 3 in a row. It doesn't look good for them in the next 2. And, it's just where the program is. And I like a lot of what is going on behind the scenes and some of the foundation being built. But I mean, again, and I tell this to everybody, I've told it to you, nothing that's going on has kind of surprised me. I was always in that 6-6, 7-5 area. But if they lose the last 2 and they go 5-7, that's not good, because you need to show some kind of improvement on the field. So a lot of just uncertainty, going into these last couple of games, Shane.
Yeah, for sure. This text says there might be only 2 or 3 players on the defense good enough to be a Gator. YouTube, Chris asked, I want to get your thoughts on this, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. What scares me is Napiers losing a top 10 class and his whiffs in the transfer portal. Do O-line recruits do not like Sell or Stapleton? Is it money? Why can't this staff build up the lines of scrimmage?
Well, I mean, those are questions that, I don't have the answers to. I do know that they need to improve there. I do think that's probably one of the areas that, Billy talks a lot about, his quality control and consistently looking to improve and finding an edge. He reiterated a lot of those talking points after Saturday night's game about, they've got to find an edge. Everybody in that building has to be working extremely hard to find an edge. And I think one of the edges they need to find is more talent, more depth across both lines. I look at this team and it really stood out, in the loss to Georgia. I mean, they're just not on that level up front on either side of the ball. And you have to get to that if you're going to crack this LSU or a Georgia Alabama grip on the SEC championship game right now. You've got to get some of those guys, and it does start in recruiting or the transfer portal. So I don't know if that will be one of the things they look to tweak in the offseason, looking at how the staff is structured, looking at the philosophy toward building the program, because I do think the transfer portal to me is if you get good in the transfer portal, you can turn your team around really quick. And they've done it well in the with Pearsall and Johnson and Mertz. If you can get 3 or 4 of those guys on defense, suddenly you're a lot better. So, but those are a lot of ifs at this point,
So Scott, I'm getting all these things about Billy losing these kids in this recruiting class, whatever.
Yep.
I just, to me, and it's just me personally, I don't know why people care. Trust me, Billy is trying his hardest. His staff is trying his hardest to convince the Scott Carters of the world, come play and be a Gator. I don't know why people get like, if Billy loses a guy, what can he do about it? These kids are making their own decision. And whether it's money, whether it's playing time, whether it's going to play for a team that has been winning championships, it's out of his control. It's out of your control as a fan. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Am I wrong to think that way?
No, I mean, that's just the whole cottage industry in college football, the recruiting space. And I get, that is the future in a lot of ways of your program. But again, you can't, I'm certainly too, by the time I was 20, I was over riding the highs and lows of, 16 and 18-year-old kids on their decisions. I'm not going to live that way. And, to be honest with you, just looking at this from a totally big picture view, if I'm a college coach or Billy Napier right now, you want to have a nice, really, you need a top 10 high school recruiting class, or you'd like to say you had a top 10. But man, right now with what's happening at Texas A&M with all these other changes, I'm looking right away. I'm looking at the transfer portal. That's how you turn things around. I'd much rather bring in a 2-year guy from another school who's already developed some than any high school player in America, unless he's a phenom such as a Reggie Bush or, somebody I'm missing, obviously, some guy who came in as a freshman and was a game changer. There's not many of those around, Shane. We know that. So why not build through the transfer portal more? I mean, that's what I'd be doing. So I think high school recruiting is still very important, but it's going to become less and less important as we go deeper into the next stage of college football. And eventually, I think the high school recruiting space will be nothing like we're accustomed to.
Van Der says, Shane, maybe it's because they want to play for a coach that can coach. Well, if that's the case, there's a lot of coaches that can't coach that are getting guys too. I'm telling you right now, I firmly believe recruiting in today's world, it's all about money.
Yeah.
It's all about money. And I told JC this, and I believe in it, and I could be 100% wrong because there's no way to prove it. But when you look at Georgia, Alabama, A&M, LSU, and Auburn, they have much, much deeper pockets than the folks with the Gators.
Well, I think
that's
also,
just my personal opinion.
I think they certainly have maybe more people willing to put their money into that.
Okay,
area.
maybe that's the best way to say it. Yeah. JC's like, well, Florida's got the biggest alumni base in America. That means nothing. Those people don't give a damn if the Gators win a football game or not. You got to have the yellow Jimmy from Yellowwood kind of guys. You got to have those golden flakes. I'm just telling you. The oil money out at A&M. When Texas comes in, we're in trouble. So anyway, that's just my 2 thoughts. And I think Billy's a great recruiter, but you can only recruit so much. When I asked Scott Carter, if you're the one complaining about Billy losing, okay, you're the player, or you put that person that's complaining in that kid's situation and say, okay, this school is offering me $200,000. Somebody comes in and gives you $800,000. It's no different in your regular job. You're going to take the money and go.
Yeah, it's not much different than, when you're dating in high school, Shane. You got a girlfriend, and suddenly this other girl that you kind of liked looks over at you and winks at you. Whoa, you might change girlfriends. That's just the way it is for 18-year-olds.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Scott, we got a text here. Do you know anything about any injury updates going into the Missouri game?
No, I mean, we'll find out, more today. I can't just think of anything from the game the other night who got hurt. There was nothing. I mean, that game it wasn't based on an injury, obviously. I know they lost, they missed Kingsley again, but I don't really know if they missed him that much. I think Jake Slaughter's doing fine. I think, losing Shamar was big. They've got the other guys back inside with Sapp and Jackson, but didn't seem to make much of a difference. I think the story of this team right now, Shane, is finding a way. I mean, they need a kind of a, I won't say miracle, because I think they can. I mean, I like the way they still are going out there and trying. They don't look to me like a team that's just folding. They're trying. That's what you want to see out of your team, but they're going to need a special performance to beat Missouri or Florida State, and that's just unfortunately the story.
Yeah, I actually think beating Florida State's much easier than beating Missouri. I think they're a better team. I think Missouri. This has nothing to do with Florida State being a rival. I think Missouri's a better football team than Florida State.
Yeah, I mean, I watched that game Saturday as I was sitting here in the couch, and Cody Schrader's got the best story in college football. If you ask me,
I was trying to tell him, where did he transfer from? The walk-on from like some Division
II school, and he was in the boosters office out there, like volunteering. And he basically told one of the boosters who had the Eli Drinkwitz here, hey, can you at least get me a walk-on tryout? And he does. And look at him now. He leads the SEC in rushing. That's like a Rudy story almost.
It's an awesome story. People don't realize it, but like you said, he came from nowhere.
Yeah,
nowhere.
I mean, so they're good, basically.
Yeah. Lanny says, aren't a majority of portal guys players that aren't playing at their current schools? That's not true. Some grad transfers, but the Brock Bauer type players aren't transferring. No. Speaking of Brock Bowers, he played, but their two starting receivers at Georgia were playing they were the best receiver at Missouri last year, Dominic Lovett.
Yeah.
And the kid from Mississippi State, I can't think of his name right now. He was Mississippi State's top receiver.
Florida State's the same way. I mean, they've got the Raheem Bell from South Carolina who gave the Gators some trouble last year. And that's when I'm talking about transfers. That's where I'm talking about, Shane. I mean, it is a different world in college football. It's some of it, quite frankly, I'm not a big fan of, but it's the reality. It's the system that the people in charge have created because they failed to create a better system. So it does take some money in this day and age to get the kind of players who can make an impact right away. But guess what? The schools that have the money are using it, and that's just the way it works.
Yeah, like it was Ra Thomas. Thanks, Toby. Thomas, wide receiver. And Andy says it's Truman State where Schroeder was playing.
Truman State. Wow.
Yeah, think about that. But
I think that's my point. Is that the first time Truman State's been mentioned on your podcast here?
Absolutely. But my point is, you're going to find guys. Let's just use Schroeder. Is it Schroeder or Schrader?
Schroeder.
I don't know if he has any eligibility left, but hell, Kirby Smart may call him at the end of the year and say, hey, you will come be our tailback? We'll give you X amount of dollars. That's what's happening in today's college football.
Yeah,
if you don't have a chance if you want to make a little bit of money, but have a chance to win a national title, those guys that are in the mix, the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States, the Michigans, they can pick and choose and go after if they need the best slot receiver in America. Hey, come play for us. We'll pay you this. You're going to have a chance to win a national title.
And, as much as all these guys think they're going to play in the NFL, you and me both know, I mean, it's a very slim opportunity for 95% of the college football players. So for a guy like him, or other guys who you want that almost like an NFL experience while you still have some college ability and make some money, guess what? That's how Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and others can do it,
Yep, for sure. All right. Well, that's going to do it, Scott. Let everybody know what you got going on this week.
A lot of the Missouri game, and just, talking to these guys and coaches this week, we'll find out, obviously, the mood and what they can do. And unfortunately, it's a storyline that's not it's kind of been the same for the past couple of weeks, Shane. I'd just like to see them pull off an upset, get bowl eligible, and put a little positive spin on the end of the season. It's going to be tough. We all know that, and I just think that's just where we are, man. We'll see.
Yep.
We'll see how it shakes out.
Scott, appreciate your time. We'll talk to you next week, bud.
See you, bud.
That's Scott Carter. Join us on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. Hope you enjoyed today's program. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. Take care.